lovely friends. Have you ever felt like you're constantly saying yes to please other people, even when it's at the expense of your own happiness? Well, today we're exploring the world of people pleasing, uncovering the whys, the dangers, and most importantly, how to break free from this cycle. So, this is for anyone who has struggled with people pleasing, whether you're choleric, sanguine, melancholic, or phlegmatic. Understanding your temperament and its role in people pleasing can be a game changer. I'm Rhonda Girodi. Welcome back to The Mirror. Thank you for joining me for our second episode in the series that we're building our self-reliance, our resistance, and our resilience, all with the objective to gain self-mastery. So before we get started, don't forget to follow, like, subscribe. You know the drill. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. All right, so let's jump into it. Growing up, I was a classic people pleaser. I'd bend over backwards to make people happy, often neglecting my own needs and my own desires. Not pleasing people actually felt like I was being mean to them, and sometimes it still does. My schedule was always packed. I mean, my schedule is still packed, but back then it was packed with other people's things. At least now it's packed with my own stuff. It wasn't until I realized the toll that it was taking on me personally that I decided that I had to take action. Now, although this was many years ago and I've come such a long way, a recent situation made me realize that I still have a little work to do in that department. So here's what you can expect from today. We'll talk about what people pleasing actually is and sometimes how it shows up and you don't even realize. We'll talk about some of the consequences, why we get into it, how our temperaments impact all of that. And we'll talk about why and how, sometimes saying no can feel bad. I'll share my story of how far people pleasing can actually go if you're dealing with someone who is manipulative. I'll also link some helpful resources for you in the post and in the descriptions, things that are going to help you with dealing with all of this. All right, so what is people pleasing? People pleasing is when you go out of your way to make other people happy or to get their approval, even if it means ignoring your own needs or being someone you're not. And you do it a lot of the times to get their validation. It's like constantly sacrificing yourself to keep everybody else smiling. It's prioritizing the wishes and the expectations of other people over your own well-being and sometimes compromising your own values, and it is extremely common. So here are some of the ways you could be people pleasing and not even realize it. Overcommitting at work. For example, agreeing to take on too many tasks just to please your boss, which is going to lead to stress and possibly decreased performance. Saying yes to social events, attending events even when you would rather not go, just to avoid disappointing your friends, right? Yeah, I think we can all probably relate to that. Neglecting your personal needs, putting off self-care activities and hobbies and things that you enjoy doing to cater to the requests or the demands of other people. Suppressing your opinions, not expressing your true thoughts and feelings to avoid upsetting someone. Now, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with not wanting to upset other people. I mean, I don't think we should go out of our way to try to upset other people. But there are times where you want to say something, you would like to express a thought or a feeling, and you choose not to only because you don't want to upset the other person. That's kind of not where we want to be. So what causes people pleasing? Well, one of the first things is low self-esteem. Many people pleasers seek sort of like that external validation because they lack confidence in themselves. Another thing is a fear of rejection. Nobody likes to be rejected. But of course, if you really fear it or you really dislike being rejected, that's going to drive you to please others excessively. Then you have the desire for approval. Seeking approval and praise can be a powerful motivating factor for people pleasing. And then avoiding conflict. There's some temperaments that are famous for this. Some of us people please to avoid confrontation and conflict, and just we don't want to deal with it. We just don't want the drama, right? So in an article from Psychology Today from August 2023, stated this. In a YouGov poll from 2022, 49% of adults that were surveyed self-identified as people pleasers. That means they knew they were doing this. It also said that in today's hyper-connected world, we have a growing obsession with and a cultural proclivity for being liked and needed to please others. People-pleasing can be a silent killer, slowly eroding your authenticity and leaving you nothing more than a hollow yes. You should learn how to be happy and to be authentic. It is your right as a human being to have joy and to be the person God created you to be. What are some of the consequences? Emotional stress, burnout, anxiety, difficulty setting boundaries and prioritizing self-care, strained relationships because you can't be yourself, hindered personal growth and self-discovery. I don't know about you, but I don't like anything on that list. Reasons for people pleasing based on your temperament. So how does people pleasing show up in the various temperaments? Cholerics, these are the dominant ones. Choleric individuals tend to people please to maintain a sense of control and to assert dominance over people. For example, imagine a driven manager who constantly says yes to every task so that they can appear indispensable. The sanguines are social butterflies. Sanguines tend to people please because they want to be liked. They want everybody to like them. They don't want you to not like them or not be happy with them. So think of an extroverted friend who agrees to plans that they dislike or they can't afford just because they don't want you to be upset with them. The phlegmatics, the peaceful people. So yeah, everything has to be peaceful. Phlegmatics tend to people please to maintain their inner peace and to avoid confrontation like the plague. So for example, consider a reserved family member who always says yes to extra chores or tasks, even when they're not feeling well, just because they want to keep things harmonious and they don't want to have to give any pushback. The melancholic. So these are our analytical friends, also very artsy. Melancholic personalities might people please due to their perfectionism tendencies and their fear of criticism. So for example, picture a gifted writer who goes along with an editor's pressure and produces work that is inauthentic because they didn't want to express their true opinion. They didn't want to be criticized for it. So that project will never be something that that person is truly proud of because it doesn't truly represent them. What are some of the dangers of people pleasing? First of all, the loss of authenticity. Constantly pleasing other people leads to losing touch with yourself, who you really are, degrading who you were created to be. God went through a lot of trouble to create each of us the way that we are. So let's try to be the best version of who he made us to be. It can strain relationships because authenticity is replaced with a facade. There's also the mental and emotional toll that can take place with people pleasing, often resulting in stress, anxiety, and just sheer emotional exhaustion, right? Stop robbing yourself of your dreams and vision by constantly saying yes to things you don't want to. It's time to take your life back. So, Rhonda, you've told me all about people pleasing, the dangers, the this and that, why I shouldn't be doing it, why I shouldn't like it, and so on. So how do I stop people pleasing? Well, first of all, you may not just stop people pleasing altogether. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with wanting to please people. The challenge comes in where the people pleasing costs more than it should. Yeah. So first of all, self-awareness. Start by recognizing the people-pleasing patterns that you have. What are the triggers? Where does it show up? Is it a particular situation, a particular environment, organization, maybe a particular person? What are the triggers and when does it show up? We also have to learn to set boundaries. Learn to say no when you need to say no. Prioritize your self-care. Set clear boundaries both in your personal life and your professional relationships. Be very clear, all right? Be very clear about what you will and what you won't do. Develop assertive communication skills to express your needs respectfully. I'm not saying to be rude or to be harsh. I just don't think that's necessary. That too could be part of my own temperament. But there's no need to be aggressive, and there's also no need to be passive aggressive. Be assertive and just be clear. Build your self-worth and practice self-love. Work on boosting your self-worth and reduce the need for that sort of external validation. Promote self-compassion. You be your greatest cheerleader. So here's what worked for me. Many years ago, I encountered a very manipulative man who systematically got me to repeatedly do something that I wasn't comfortable doing. Now, while it wasn't anything drastic, and that was the deception, I suppose, because it wasn't anything, you know, that far-fetched. But I was sure that I didn't like it and I didn't want to do it. And yet I said nothing. That's crazy, right? I just didn't want to make him feel uncomfortable. I didn't want to embarrass him by telling him, I wasn't really comfortable. And instead, I shouldered the burden and the discomfort, which over time really affected me. So when I look back at the situation, I would get so angry at myself for allowing it to continue and not just say, I don't want to do this. I knew something was wrong with that. Something in me knew that that wasn't okay, even if I didn't have a name for it. I didn't know it was people pleasing. I didn't even know that was a thing. So what did I do? I began reading books, listening to sermons, trying to get an understanding of where this behavior came from. And I learned a few things. So I started practicing saying no. At first, it was so hard. It felt like torture, but I would say no. But when I said no, I would give a long explanation as to why I couldn't do it and if I'd be able to do it in the future and how I could fit it. Just always a long explanation. Eventually, I learned to just say, no, I won't be able to do this. Now, there's nothing wrong with giving an explanation, but for me, giving the explanation was all part of the people pleasing. I wanted you to know that I really would if I could, but I don't need to do that. I can simply say that I'm not able to do this right now, or I don't really want to do this right now. That is my right to be able to say no. I also stopped offering to do things I knew I either didn't want to do or simply didn't have the time to do. Every time I people pleased, it was costing me. The wrong yes was costing me the right yes. And I remember listening to a teaching from Dr. Miles Monroe, and he said something that really hit me. I'm going to paraphrase. I can't remember exactly how he said it, but he said something like, every time all the time that you spend doing things that are not part of your purpose and your calling, you are basically saying no to your dreams, your vision, and your purpose. So you only have a certain amount of time in the day. And if you should be spending it doing A and you're spending it doing B, it means you're leaving A undone, unattended. So you are robbing yourself like I was robbing myself. So it's important to find a balance between pleasing others and prioritizing your own well-being. And that isn't being selfish. Don't get me wrong. It's fine to make sacrifices for people. It's fine to go out of your way. It's fine to please people. It's fine to do all of that. And again, depending on the proximity of the person, spouses are always going to make sacrifices for each other. Parents are always going to make sacrifices for children. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But there is a point at which that can become toxic if you're constantly feeling like I am always on the short end of the stick here. Yeah. So to round up, people pleasing is a very common struggle, but it's not an unbreakable cycle. So understanding the reasons behind it, recognizing some of its dangers, and implementing some of the things we talked about today, all of that can help you lead a more authentic and fulfilling life. In a world obsessed with likes and approvals, it's time to ask yourself, are you living for others or for the real you? If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and please don't forget to subscribe. Share your experiences with me about people pleasing. And if you've come up with any tips that you found helpful, put it in the comments. Or if you prefer, you can email me at rhonda@rhondajarodi.com. If you want to know more about your temperament, you'll find a link to a free test and a guide in the post or in the description. Remember, it is never too late to start embracing your true self and living a life that aligns with your values. That is key. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey to break free from people pleasing. Until next time on The Mirror, take care and stay true to who God created you to be. Bye.